ready for the lecture. Very excited to get started. What was I gonna say? Something I was gonna say to start. So not really now, but soon at the end of the like lecture portion of it, where we're kind of doing activities, I suggest getting into that first Google Drive that's on the link on TikTok or on Twitch. On TikTok, if you go to the link in my bio, there's a one called a resource file. Check that out. It's a Google Drive. There is going to be a dictionary. There's actually, let me check what's in it right now, because I might have to add something to it. Sorry, I didn't have captions on the entire time. There is Alan's Middle Egyptian lecture book. There is an alphabet chart, which we will look at. There is the Faulkner Concise Dictionary. There's also the modernized version, so you can actually type and search for different words in there. There's a Gardner sign list. There's the Hawk Middle Egyptian, and then there's also a vocab sheet. That was for a specific lecture I did. You will not need that vocab sheet for this. Mainly, if anything, you're going to need... I'm going to scan in a couple other things that I have, but I haven't had the chance to do that, and we'll be talking about it. Also, I'll be drawing some hieroglyphs for you guys, so you guys got to be nice to me in my writing. But first, we're going to get started with an actual lecture. So, today we are going to talk about how to read offering formulas. We're going to go over some basics of Egyptian language. If you had taken this lecture with me, which truly, I actually tried to look back. I have no idea when I gave this lecture. I apparently did not save it as I have like a separate folder in my thing about where I save lectures that I've given, and I apparently did not save it in there. It might be in like I might have done it on like my birthday or on like a streamiversary or something, but I literally can't find the file, and I can't find the PowerPoint I used for it. I can't find anything. So apparently I didn't give a lecture on this, but I think, I don't know, something weird happened. So we're going to be talking about the very basics of Egyptian language, and then we'll look specifically at offering formulas. At the end, we're going to do a couple different activities, which it's going to be, some of it is part of it for me as well. I have the answers to some of them, and I don't have the answers for others. So we'll all get to cross that bridge when we get there, which is great. So let's get started. So the making sure everyone can see this. Yeah. So we're first going to talk about, sorry, I'm going to I'm changing one little thing so that you guys can see this for a second more. Okay. We're going to learn kind of how hieroglyphs work so that you guys can kind of understand that first, before we get into the actual... This is going to help you guys learn a little bit more about words and how hieroglyphs kind of work. And it's not as simple as little emojis. There are essentially three types of glyphs that you need to know, and you need to know how to form words in ancient Egyptian. I also will say this is a precursor. We are learning Middle Egyptian here. Middle Egyptian is the only Egyptian language that I know. I know a very, very, very small bit of hieratic. But the reason why I only know Middle Egyptian is the most popular to teach students. It's the easiest to learn, and we have the most written examples in Middle Egyptian. So thus, that's why it is so easy to learn. That's why it's so easy to look out at all the different options you essentially have to take from them. There are many different languages. There are many, many different dialects kind of within ancient Egypt, and this is going to be the main one. This is going to be mostly the one, I believe it's from like the Middle Kingdom up to the middle of the New Kingdom. It is very similar to a lot of the other ones, but things change, things evolve. So this is the one that we're going to look at. The first thing is you are going to have the monoliterals. Oh, that's why that didn't work. Sorry. One second. There we go. Now you can see the full thing. Sorry, TikTok. Sorry, Twitch. I'm gonna get mixed up. It's so bad that TikTok and Twitch have the same first letter. But hello everyone on TikTok. We are also live streaming on Twitch if you want to see it a little bit up and closer. So the first ones that we're going to look at are the ones on the left, and those are called monoliterals. Literally, that means one sound, I think. I don't know what literals actually means in Latin, but mono meaning one. So the big thing with this is that these are glyphs that are only going to make one sound. Whenever you type in ancient Egyptian alphabet, you will see some version of this list on the left. You will see the monoliterals list being defined as the alphabet. That's not how this works, but what you are technically doing whenever you see one of those alphabets and you see the and you essentially see that you can write your name out, you are using it phonetically. The other thing though is that there are ones, if you look at this list does not include every single sound because they didn't have the letter what's the letter they didn't have? They didn't have the letter L. They didn't have the letter L. They didn't have the letter X. Like they have a similar sounding, but not really. I don't know what abjad is, but it's not syllabary, if that makes sense. We'll talk about how words form in a second, but it's not really... I actually don't know the difference between syllabary or abjad. Essentially, how do I say this? Words are formed by sounds, almost. And sometimes the glyphs will explain... Is an alphabet with only consonants. Oh, yes, it is abjad. Sorry. It is abjad. There are ones that sound like vowels, but I believe it would be classified as abjad because there are no real true vowels. So briefly, I'll go through these ones because it's easy. We're not going to go through the next two types. So the way that these are written is right here. You see glyph on the far left, translit. That means transliteration. That is how you are writing it, essentially in a way that you are using our modern alphabet and writing that sound. And then phonetic is obviously how you are saying it. So the first one we have is what we call the aleph bird. It's a vulture. And then this sign, which looks like a little 3, is the aleph. And it makes an ah sound. It is not necessarily a vowel. It does not follow the terms and conditions that a vowel does. Then you have the one reed leaf with it, which is E, which is pronounced not like I, it is pronounced E, and is written with this fancy I. Then you got the double reed leaf or the double slash, which will be Y. It's also pretty much pronounced E, sort of. It's a little, these two are very confusing. Then you have the ayin, arm. So this is a physical, like, arm of a human. It's written with this little C that's kind of hanging up in the air, almost like an exponent, sort of. And this one is also pronounced sort of like an ah. I gotta look at, this is my cheat sheet that I have over here for the monoliteral signs. So the reed leaf is like E, like the E in beat, and then the aleph A is like the A in father. Ah, ah. And then the second one is more like A. So father and A. Then you got the quail chick, or the oo. It's written like a W. It's pronounced like a U, pretty much. Or the two O's in two oo, very much. And then, but if it's at the beginning of the word, it does have that more wah like sound. Kind of depends. Then you got the human leg for B. You have this little thing, which is actually supposed to be a footstool. It's just a little square, is P. You got the viper, the horned viper for F. You got the owl for M. You got the water for N. You got the mouth, like the human mouth, for R. This one is actually a reed shelter, but looking at it from above, and that is the first H. Consonantal language values, A, E, I, U. Yeah, that's kind of all they got. They don't really have much else. Yeah, that's pretty much all they have. So it's not sort of vowels, but not really vowels. So that is first H. You might notice there are 4 H's. 4, just to annoy us. So 4 H's. First H is just huh. Second H is actually this twisted flax, and it has an H with a dot underneath it. And that is also H. Then you have third H is this funny little circle with lines across of it. We believe it is supposed to be a placenta. Don't ask me why, but that's what we think it is. That is going to be third H, which is more of a like the ick sound, like the CH and ick. It's more throaty. And then the fourth H is actually going to be the cow belly and the udders. And it's also going to be like an ich sound. Then you have first S, because, you know, we just got to have 2 S's. This is actually a folded cloth. A little fold, or sorry, wait a second. Sorry. There are technically 3, but not really. So this is also written as Z sometimes. This one is meant to be a door bolt. It's kind of the thing that will lock a door. And then this one is a normal S. But they're kind of almost interchangeable, which is why they're placed next to each other. This one, which is a pool of water, is sh with that little crosshatch on the top. As in like shape, sh. Then you have this little thing, which is supposed to be, oh, sorry guys. This little thing, which is supposed to be a hill. That's the first, that is the first K, but it's also Q, pronounced like K, but it has a dot at the bottom, or it's written as a Q. You can see here it's written as Q. Then you have the reed basket, and it has this little loopy loop on the side. That is also K. Then you have the jar stand, which is a G, and that's G, very G sound. Then you have the first T, which is a little bread loaf, and then the rope hobble, so it's a rope kind of looping around. That is the second T, which is like the ch in channel, ch. Then you, just to finish it out, you got 2 Ds. So you got normal D, which is just a hand, this little hand like this, and then you got the big snake, the cobra, is second D, which second D is technically J. It is like a J, J. So that is your monoliterals. So every other, what we call the biliterals, so having 2 sounds, and the triliterals, having 3 sounds, will all have 1 or more uses of these monoliterals, but they will be together. So this is just a small example of the biliterals, and that is essentially meaning 1 glyph, 2 sounds. You can still put, technically, this is the annoying part, you can still technically put 2 monoliterals together and make 2 sounds, but it will be 2 separate glyphs. How many letters are there? I could not tell you. If you're talking letters as in glyphs, hundreds, thousands. But if you're talking letters, like the sounds, these monoliterals are it. That's all it is. What is this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like 24. There's not, but it depends. But the glyphs, yes. And I'll explain why there are more glyphs. There are so many more glyphs. So these are the biliterals. It essentially means that, like, for example, this one here is a cow horn, and that is wep. That is the 2 literal, whenever you see that glyph, you will say wep. Just to confuse you, sometimes the Egyptian will add another glyph to after that will be the P. You're not supposed to repeat the P. It's just to remind you that there is a P in that biliteral. Just to confuse you. Sometimes I think the Egyptians just wanted to confuse me. But yeah, so these are some of the examples of the biliterals. Then, here on the left, you have the examples of the triliterals. Again, these are using 3 different letters. So, a really popular one, if I can find it, is right here. The Ankh. Ankh is a triliteral. It is the ayin, the n, and the third h. Ankh. So that in itself is a word, but it not necessarily means it has to be a word. It means that Ankh could be included in a longer word, meaning something else. Yeah, exactly. With 3 writing systems. That's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. So yeah, so you have the triliterals, which are going to list 3 different sounds. Now, the reason why we have so many different glyphs is, to be honest, not because of the mono, bi, or triliterals. It's because of the determinatives. So here's the thing. The way that words are written, there can be words that are pronounced exactly the same, but mean different things. Which, in English and in other languages, it's that they are written the same, but they are pronounced differently. And that is not how this is done. It is written differently, but it is pronounced the same. The reason that is written differently is because it has a determinative at the end of that word that does not make a sound. And that helps you determine what that word means. That's like the very gist of it. These are usually, I'll say this, for the vast majority of it, the determinative will actually look like something that has to do with what the word means. That is not a guarantee, which is very, again, annoying. But these are some examples of determinatives. And again, they don't always mean the same thing. But it's like if you see this glyph of a tree after a word, you can assume that the thing is probably a plant. If you see these the 3 little dots, that it's like something is like the sand or the material or the pellets, like that is something like it's describing stones. It's describing something that is small, jewels, apparently. A lot of different things. What do you mean, Mr. Blender? Is this the same as... These are all hieroglyphs, yes. All of these are considered hieroglyphs. Determinatives are just things that are not necessarily making a sound. They are just there as a, hey, this is what that word means. Because there are words that are pronounced exactly the same and are not written the same. For example, my ancient Egyptian name is Bit. B-I-T. It is actually a triliteral. I wonder if it's on here. I don't think... Actually, no, it's not a triliteral. It's a biliteral. I wonder if it's on the other page. I don't think it's on... It might not be on here. Yeah, it's not on this sheet. But it is a biliteral. And all it is the symbol of a bee. It's a symbol of a bee because the ancient Greek definition of Melissa is bee. So my ancient Egyptian name would be the ancient Egyptian word for bee, which is B, or which is B-I, bi, and then the T is added at the end because I am female, and that adds the bit. I was doing a name in hieroglyphs for some of my old coworkers before I left my old job, and I discovered that one of my coworkers, whose name was Pamela, her name in whatever language it was means honey. And I looked up what was the ancient Egyptian word for honey. Turns out it is also bit. And that is because, obviously, honey comes from bees. But the way that they were written differently, mine is just a bee, and hers, which I'm wondering if this one has it. No, it does not. Hers is a bee with a tiny little jar next to it, indicating that it's a product of a bee, like something coming from a bee. and that you can put it in a jar. And that's her name for honey. But our names would be exactly pronounced the exact same, but we have different writings of them. And that's because of the determinatives. Okay, any questions about that? Any questions? The other thing I wanted to add is that you can read hieroglyphs in multiple different directions. And so we'll sounds obvious when you say it. It's weird, but it is. But I will say that is a very rare occurrence. Most of them are so much more confusing than that. So when it comes to the direction of which way to read your hieroglyphs, this is not the best example because none of these are in any sort of order, but I'll go back to this page so that you can see. You can read hieroglyphs from left to right, from right to left, or from up to down. You cannot read them from down to up. It does not work that way. So the way that you can figure out which way you're supposed to read the hieroglyphs is you are going to look for the animals and the people. And I guarantee you, almost every single sentence you are ever going to read is going to have multiple animals and people in it. Because there are just tons of them. They use so many different types of birds. So many different types of birds. You can even see here, there's one bird here, there's one bird there, there's one bird there, there's a fish there, there's another fish, there's another bird, there's another bird, there's another bird, there's another bird, there's another bird. It's even like, there's like 5 birds on this. So you're going to look for the birds or the people, and what you're going to do is you are going to read into their faces. Into their faces. So you're going to read the hieroglyphs as if you are walking up to that person or walking up to that animal. And when you are reading it up to down, it will get a little bit harder because it'll be in a thin column like this, but there will be glyphs still side by side rather than all up and down. What you will do is you will continually look for the animals and the humans, and you will read essentially from left to right or right to left as you are going down. So you read into the faces, and then you'd read down, and then down, and then down, or you'd go this way, this way, this way, this way. It's kind of how you read it. So, my throat is already dry. Any questions so far? I was gonna say on Twitch I have there's a channel point alert for lecture questions. You're more than welcome to click that, but because we don't have that many people in chat, it's totally fine. We can you can just ask the question in the chat. But if it does get a little busy, I'll ask you to use the channel point so that I don't lose any of the questions. Alrighty, let's move on. So briefly, I'm also going to go on how you're going to write in hieroglyphs, and I'm going to jump over to my little tablet thing to show you how I would write some of them. This is almost exactly how I would do it, but it's typed, so it's a little bit different than how I do it. This is kind of what works for me. It's not what works for everybody, but it might help you guys when we're doing our little practice at the very end. So one thing that I always do to keep up my practice on drawing all of the different glyphs is I will draw out every single glyph that comes along, kind of as you go down and across. And that just helps me because it will help me learn how to draw the signs accurately and also quickly sometimes helps. Like it used to take me, oh my god, it used to take me so long to be able to write down all of the glyphs, but I am very glad that I sorry, I just realized you guys can't see my cursor. There you go. Now people on TikTok can see my cursor. So I always would write down all of the actual glyphs first. Then what I would do is I As you go on, you're going to do what we call a transliteration. Transliteration, again, is writing down these, which this isn't even honestly true. It's writing down these letters. So writing down both our version of the alphabet and the occasional weird sounds like the I and the ayin and the aleph, but writing those down underneath the glyphs so that you know what that glyph says. So in this case, you have the scarab beetle, you also have the mouth, and you also have this, which I believe is a tied up scroll. I now know, because I know this, the scarab beetle is a triliteral for heiper. I think it's third H, P-R, heiper. Remember how I said that they like to duplicate other signs even when they don't want to? That's what it's doing here. It's giving you that reassurance that there is an R in this, but you don't have to do heiper. Doesn't need 2 R's. You just need 1. Netcher, this little flag right here, is also a triliteral for Netcher, N-T-R, second T, and second T-R, and that is the word for God. So the next thing that I would do, personally, what I do is I actually write down the definition of the word, kind of in really scrawling handwriting, just like very small. So here I would write, oh, it means, one of the options is it means scarab. It also could mean a different god. In this case, it's actually, you would look it up in the dictionary and you would see that it's a verb for to come into being. And I would write all those different options. And I would write God under here, and I would write Lord. Another thing Neb means is Lord, and so I would write, oh, Lord, or every. And then I would look at all of the different definitions, and I would look at where everything is sitting in the sentence, and that's how I kind of fully translate it. So that's a little bit too much detail, but I promise when we get to the offering formulas, you'll see how this is much easier than this. You can also, it's also hard, this is going to be the hardest part for you guys, I think, because this is just something that you learn via practice, is the separation of words. There is no punctuation in ancient Egypt. There is no separating sentences. There's like very, very little options. There's one option that does start a new sentence, but it's not always used. It's for a specific verbal predicate. So my biggest thing is that when you're looking through the dictionary and you're looking at words, I sometimes draw slashes in between where I think words end and begin, trying to like gauge it. You'll learn new words, you'll learn new things as you kind of go along, and that will help you over time. Alrighty, let's move on. Briefly, we're going to talk how grammar works. I'm going to make this so brief, because the greatest thing about the offering formula is you almost need to know any of the grammar, and the grammar is the hardest part of Middle Egyptian. It is so goddamn hard. There are so many different predicates, there are so many different, oh my god, there's so many different verbal structures, it's just insane. So, I'm trying to do this as simple as possible, so that you can just get the very, very basics of this. So, for the most part, but this is not 100% completely correct, the predicate or the conjugated verbs are going to go first, and they are going to go before the subject. That's mostly how it is formatted. Obviously, it is different in English, but there are other languages that put the subject after the verb. Most of the time, it is going to come after the verb. Luckily, for the offering formula, there isn't really any proper grammar. It is mostly just a list. There are a few little things that kind of pop up throughout the offering formula. There's something called a relative verb form, and this is found in an indirect relative clause, meaning essentially that it can be used as an adjective or a noun, and that's what's being used in the offering formula. I'll point it out when we get to that part. The one that we use in the offering formula is a perfective relative form. So, dapper. You missed this, I think, at the very, very beginning, and that's okay. We are talking about Middle Egyptian specifically. We are talking about we're going to say about 2,000 to 3,000 years already into the history of Egypt. Middle Egyptian is the easiest one for students to learn. It is the easiest one mainly because we have the most examples of it, and it is where the language has already kind of formed after a much longer time. So this is after Old Egyptian. Surprisingly, it's like kind of Middle Kingdom, but it goes into the New Kingdom, and then you get Late Egyptian. There are multiple dialects coming out of Egypt, not even counting hieratic and demotic, which are a cursive form of this, which could be considered, could be called monumental hieroglyphs, because this is what you're going to see on temples and tombs. So this is, yes, this is quite a leap, but it's because we're thousands of years into the language already. I wish that I knew more about how the language adapted. When you look at the earliest ancient Egyptian languages, and the evidence for the earliest ancient Egyptian language, they come from the the early dynastic period, which is just it's like they call it Dynasty 0 or Dynasty 1. And they are very simple. It's essentially like one glyph labels, pretty much. That we see these like labels on pottery and on things that were buried with the pharaohs of that time period, literally labeling it as coming from a certain place. I'm sure you have heard of the Scorpion King. The Scorpion King is a real person, for one. The Scorpion King is a pre-dynastic pharaoh. He has an actual name rather than Scorpion King. But the thing is, the hieroglyph for the Scorpion King is a scorpion. Yes, the rock. The whole thing is that literally he's called the Scorpion King is because his name is just written with the glyph of a scorpion. Nowadays, like I'm sure technically there is a more Egyptian version of his name, where you would give it some sort of phonetic sound, because when you look at Narmer, Pharaoh Narmer, his name is written with a catfish and a chisel. Narmer. But I actually don't know where we got those sounds from. I don't know if we have knowledge of the phonetic sounds of the pre-dynastic language. L. Dwayne Johnson. I would have liked Dwayne Johnson. Scorpion King. He's like, as it is, it's just like, he's just so un-Egyptian. It's just so funny. I doubt the Scorpion King looked anything like him. Which is very funny to think about. But yeah. Scorpion King is just a really good one to bring up, because it's like, we call him the Scorpion King, and I'm like, that's not his name. His name is not the Scorpion King. The glyph for scorpion must have had a phonetic sound that we just don't know what it is, or maybe we do and I just don't know it. We are doing a serious lecture. Just because I'm gonna make you do homework at the end of this lecture doesn't mean that it's not a serious lecture. So the offering formulas do not have a lot of grammar in them. I think you're going to enjoy it, Dapper. I bet my boots that you're going to enjoy it. I don't have any boots, but I bet my unpurchased boots that you're going to like it. Well, I'm glad you guys are here, because this is a really fun topic, and I this is like the true thing, is that I guarantee you guys will actually be able to read these spells. And I guarantee you, if you go to any museum and you see a piece, you will be able to actually read something like this. And I'm really confident in you guys. Like, I really think that this is technically the easiest thing that you can read in Egyptian, that I truly don't think anyone needs to know Middle Egyptian to be able to read it. It is technically the first thing that I learned how to read in Egyptian. But funny enough, my professor, when we actually learned this, he did not teach us until the very end of the first year, or the first semester, because he knew that this was pretty easy and he didn't want us to think that it was so easy. He started with the hard stuff, which is funny. So right now we're briefly talking about the grammar, and then we're going to actually get into the offering formulas right after this. So the offering formulas doesn't really have any grammar. Out of anything, that all it has is a relative verb form. We call it the perfective relative form, and that essentially is using a verb as an adjective or noun. Because I forgot to mention it, words can be nouns, verbs, adjectives, with very little difference in what makes them a noun and what makes them a verb and what makes them an adjective. They all are kind of wibbly wobbly all together. So, the relative form in this case is being used in what we call an AB nominal predicate. That essentially means that the A noun, is plus the B noun. And it means noun A is noun B. It's very simple. It's like one of the simplest one ever, and we never use it. And I'm like annoyed that we never use it, but it's very simple. So it's, in this case, it's supposed to be, the relative form is noun B. Is like what this sentence is going to be. Or sorry, the relative form in this case is always going to be noun B. And it's going to be used kind of in that way. I will also point out there is something, the very, very simply, which actually I wonder if it's being used in here. I just picked a random photo of hieroglyphs, so it's probably not actually being used. Yeah, this looks way too complicated. Yeah, in a way. In a way that it depends on what word you're looking at, but yes, a lot of words you can make them into like a relative verb or into like a participle you can make it into, and that will be like who is like a something, who is like a fly. And then you can, and then the other thing is that you also, translations are not concrete. So it's like, who is like a fly? You could do fly like. Like you can kind of try different options. So the offering formula sometimes will have what we call a segem F. Let me switch over so you guys can see. I'm gonna write what it is so you guys can see it. Please enjoy my really fun tablet that I kind of stole from my mom. But she didn't want it, so it's okay. So what we call it is a segem F. A segem F is essentially a really easy sentence, and that we call it the imperfective. The imperfective means that the tense is going to be ongoing action. Oh god, I'm getting ongoing action or an incomplete action. So the segem F is, the reason why we call it that is segem. Segem is a verb meaning to hear. And the F is going to be, gotta improve that arrow. And then this is going to be the pronoun for he, him. The equal sign is something that my professor taught me to essentially attach the pronoun to the verb. This is another very big trouble with ancient Egyptian verbs. Tenses are not like normal. Tenses are not like flowy. Thank you so much, Nikolai. Thank you so much. We're doing a lecture on how to read offering formulas. We're just finishing up talking about some basic grammar, and then we're gonna start the actual, like, what is an offering formula? How can we read them? But thank you so much. Please enjoy the live. I'm testing out my new live studio so that you guys can see it from my computer rather than just from my phone. So, this is a specific way that my professor taught me how to write these with using that equal sign. You also use dots if you are adding on gender. So T for women. There is no male. It's just T for women. Gender and number as well. So in this case, this literally mean this whole section would be translated as he hears, because it is an ongoing action. So when we look at offering formulas, there might be one of these sejemefs, which again is that it's that ongoing action, it's that incomplete action, which is sort of meaning that for the most part this is present tense, but it's not. It's specifically an ongoing action or an incomplete action. It doesn't necessarily mean it's in the present. It's like he hears. All right, let's go back to this and let's go and talk about what are offering formulas. All right, this is the game changer. Let's drink some water. Any questions so far? I'm gonna turn on a fan in here. It's really hot for no reason. Oh, hot. I'm hot. Okay. Hopefully that won't be too loud. It might be loud, but hopefully it will be okay. Okay. All right. So, what are offering formulas? Offering formulas are a dedicatory formula that are essentially believed to allow the deceased to get offerings from their living family members. In addition, there is kind of a personal and both spiritual portion of this. That is the more personal, that it's like that your family members are continuously giving you offerings, which I'll also remind everyone, the concept of the Egyptian afterlife is a little bit different than normal concept, and I find that some people don't get the full gist of it. The real gist with the ancient Egyptians is that you are going to another place that is very, very similar to life. It is very similar to the way that you are currently living, but you are in a world with the gods. But you still need the things that you would need and the things that you would want in real life in the afterlife. So that includes food, that includes you still have to work, you still have to do all of these other things, you still have to play, you still have to breathe, you still have to laugh. All of those things are like necessary to live in the afterlife. So one of the big things you need is going to be food and water and liquids. So you need these offering formulas, you need these offerings, the physical offerings or these formulas to be able to live in the afterlife. That is kind of the personal portion of these formulas. You will often see them on these little stelae here, which were usually made by relatives of the deceased person and placed in the tombs with them, or potentially placed like in their homes, but it's most likely in tombs, that will then have the offering formula that will continuously give you offerings in the afterlife. The other portion of this more spiritual and more in a interesting way, political way, these offerings that are being offered in this formula or in this spell are considered to be part of the offerings that are presented to major deities by the king. So it's almost like a certain portion of the offerings that are given by the king to the major deity of the time, whichever one it is, a certain portion of these are being kind of scooped away for this deceased person specifically. And so in a way, these offerings are being given to the deceased person by the king himself. So this gives a lot of very interesting political but also spiritual integration into this and why these are so important. Again, you will usually find these carved on a stela. If you've never heard the word stela before, it's a tombstone-shaped rock that is carved and usually has text and usually has images. It is used, the word stela or stele, which is plural, is used in multiple different denominations and ancient groups and all this different stuff. This is just how ancient Egyptians used it. So this also, because there are usually also images as well, this allows for a like actual verbal version, a written version, and then a pictorial form. In this case, the person sitting in the chair is going to be the deceased person. They will usually also be depicted in front of an offering table. So it's a little table, and on top of it are different little offerings. No. What? There's internet? Oh, sorry. Paranoid? You made me paranoid. Yes. If the Egyptians knew about internet, the internet would absolutely be in the afterlife. It would be on a totally different server. They wouldn't have access to the real life such. But yes, they would have their own version of the internet. I guarantee it. If the Egyptians had internet, they absolutely would have like included that. That's just the funniest thing ever, but it's true. It's like they really thought that everything that you needed and wanted would come with you to the afterlife. I thought you meant that my internet went out and I got freaked out. We're okay though. So, where was I? So yeah, so you have the deceased person sitting in a chair. Usually there will be an offering table in front of them. The offering table will be piled with offerings, and we'll go through a very, very long list of offerings, I promise you, because I want you guys to know all of them, and there are a ton. If there is a depiction of another person, this usually is going to be a child or a relative of the deceased person. It's usually the person who is making this stela or commissioning this stela for their deceased relative. And it's almost a way of signing it and also saying, hey dad, look, I made this for you. Like, you should remember me in the afterlife. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of for clout. I don't know why else, but it's kind of a sassy way to be like, yeah, I did that. Like, I helped out my dad, signing your name to it kind of pretentiously, but that's kind of how it is. In this case, I can actually see here it says daughter, Sat F, his daughter. And I was going to say this one here says Sa F, his son. Oh, but his son's dead, which we'll talk about. Yeah, his son is dead. So this one at the very bottom, the offering formula is only the 1, 2, 3, 4 lines right here. These all down here are listing his relatives. So this says his son, and then I could read it out eventually. And this says his son, his daughter. Actually, his daughter's dead too. They're all dead. And his wife is dead too. This says his wife. So actually, I don't know who this lady's supposed to be because all the daughters are apparently dead. And we'll talk about how I know instantly that they are dead in a second. But all of the whole family is apparently dead, unfortunately. Unfortunately. Sorry, I'm reading it. I'm reading ahead. So are we translating this into a language and then to English here, or using the symbols as rough correlations? Yes, we are going to what we call transliterate it. Whoa. I skipped ahead in my notes, not in the PowerPoint. Let me... No, go back. This is called transliteration, is where you're writing it in how you are pronouncing it, pretty much, and then we will translate it into it. But the lucky thing for this is that, for the most part, translating... The big reason why offering formulas are so easy for people to translate, it is mainly memorization. It is a formula. It is the same every single time. And so you just need to know some basic things and you will be able to translate it relatively quickly. Okay. Yes, and we're going to talk about this, but yes, cartouches are only used for royalty, which is why, especially when you look at like this one, it is very hard. I can tell where the names are, where the names start and begin, because I know what I'm talking about. But you can see there are names. So after this little bird and after the snake, this is the name of the daughter. And like after this whole portion, this is the name. His name is Ihi, I think. Like that's his name. Those are his children's names, but they are not written in cartouches because they are not royalty. And so it's very hard because the words all flow together and you can't tell where one sentence begins and where one sentence ends. I'm just like, this is just all my trauma from learning this. I'm just releasing to everyone here. I hope everyone knows that. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So again, one of the reasons why this is going to be the simplest thing for you guys to know, these are some of the most common texts. You are going to see them everywhere. Once I show you the first three signs, you will be able to see these everywhere. Whenever you're going to a museum or when you're looking around, looking at different coffins, you are going to see these everywhere. And you're going to suddenly realize, oh my gosh, they are everywhere. And then you get to show off to your friends that you know how to read them. Which I hope everyone gets very excited for, because honestly, I'm excited for this. Because this is what I do to my friends when we go to museums, which is so awful of me, but whatever. I did a master's for this. I should be able to do it. All right. So I'll also point out that there are a couple different versions of things that you will see offering stela on, or offering formulas on, excuse me. There are certain ones called offering menus. That's going to be what this one is on the end. Now this is Old Kingdom. I don't know if the language is a little bit different. We'll look at it later, but I'm not sure if we're going to actually be able to fully translate this one. But what essentially is you are seeing off in the corner is you are seeing literally like a menu. And it is a list of the offerings that, instead of writing it out in the long sentence that you see here, which this is a list, pretty much. I will tell you that right now. It is a list, but it's all in one fellow sentence. You will see ones that are literally like a menu. It's like a little chart. And all of these things right here, these are all numbers. So these are, I think this is 1,000, this is 10, these are ones. All of these have little numbers. And so they're telling you how many of the offerings they are giving, out of which one. The other option is that you are going to see this one, which is an offering table. This one will have an offering formula. It will go all the way around in a long circle. And you will see very interesting little shapes on the top, which are supposed to be different offerings. In this case, these are jars of, we're looking at it upside down, unfortunately. These are loaves of bread, the big circles, and then these are jars of beer. And they are actually on the hieroglyph for offering, for a hetep, for offering table. And so this is another version of the same concept. While the actual concept like of an offering formula and an offering spell is to be read, it is to be read over and over again as if you are saying this, you're saying essentially, think of a grace that you were saying before you eat. You are blessing the food that you are eating right now. Saying this phrase over and over again is continuously giving your deceased relative offerings by repeating this over and over and over again, by reading it and by reading it out loud. In this case, what you can also do is you can read the offering formula. You can also pour water or oil over this entire offering table, and the water will flow down this little spout and into the ground below it, and which will also give the virtual offerings. We're giving subs, we're giving bits, we're giving those offerings virtually in this way. We are kind of surpassing the real life and the afterlife. going back and forth doing that. I hope that makes sense. It's a very weird way to talk about it, but it is how it sort of is. So what was I going to say? There's one other thing. And the reason why this is virtual is so that your family members don't literally have to waste their own food to give you actual food. Because that is also something that was done potentially at the very beginning, like right after the burial, is that actual food would have been left in the tomb or left in front of the tomb for the deceased person to eat in the afterlife. They eat the essence of that food. Technically, that food was used to feed the priests who would actually take care of the necropolis of the cemetery, and just make sure everything is like hunky-dory. But technically, you don't want to waste your own food. When you can, if you are rich enough, you can make this so that it has perpetual offerings. It's like going on forever and ever and ever. The other, yes, symbolism becomes more important than the actual offerings, for sure. And it is also a way to do it forever. Like, if you can afford to get this commissioned, which not everyone obviously could, but a good enough amount of people could, it is just a way to continuously help your deceased relatives and friends. The other option I forgot to find a picture of this. Offering formulas will also be on coffins. They are on coffins all the time. Constantly. They are going to be on coffins. So again, it's like, even if you can only afford a coffin, if you can't afford a coffin, you can maybe afford one of these stela. If you can't, you could also just put it on the coffin. So like the coffin was, I don't know if it necessarily was a backup plan, because obviously not everyone know to get a coffin or a sarcophagus, but like it would be on there. Like, offering formulas is like the number one text. So I forgot, when you guys are going through museums, don't forget to check the coffins, because there will be offering formulas, I guarantee you, on them. All right. Step 1 to translating them. Step 1 is what we call the Hetep di Nisut, or Nisu. So, we're going to go through this like step by step, and then I'm going to do an example with everybody, and then we're going to look up some ones that you can find like on museums, and we're going to try to read them as well. This is going to be a slow step-by-step process. I might check back in the middle and show you what it will look like halfway through. So the first step is called the Hetep di Nisu. Pretty much anytime you see this really tall, and yes, it is a bread loaf. It doesn't look like a bread loaf, but it is a bread loaf. Anytime you see this tall bread loaf, you can probably assume, or these symbols together, you can assume that this is going to be an offering formula. So these are the signs that you're always looking for to see the start of a Baha. What is that? Oh, it is. Well, it does look like HTTP. It's Hetep. You write it HT with an underline P. Dinisut. Dinisut. I know it looks like that, but there's no dots in between them. Sorry, you're making me laugh. That's so funny. HTTP. That would be Hetep. Hetep. With the 2 T's. Oh, I forgot to mention that. Okay, very briefly. When you yourself are saying the words out loud, we talked about there's no vowels in this language. It is impossible to talk without any vowels. Think of any word and try to say it without the vowel, by removing the vowels. It's impossible. The way that Egyptologists have adapted to this is that anytime there are consonants in between each other, we put an E sound in between. So where you see the HTEP, he, tep. D, that has sort of a vowelish sound, ni, suit. Nisut is a little bit, that's just how we pronounce it. It would be Nesut, but that's the same thing. That is how Egyptologists pronounce it. That is not necessarily how ancient Egyptians pronounced it. We do not know how. We have lots of theories. We do not know 100% how they pronounced it. So, making that very clear to everyone. When I'm saying this out loud, put that E in between all the different things. Okay? Okay? Good? Good? Okay. Forgot to mention that. That's a really important thing that I definitely did not include earlier. So, whenever you see these, like Twitter, yeah, it's like, yeah, just put any sort of E in between all the different stuff. So when you look at these symbols, the symbols that you're going to see are this reed leaf. This is the Nisu plant. This is a triliteral for Nisu, N-S-W, which is a U. You're going to see the T sometimes. For some reason, you're only going to see it sometimes. Nisut. It is Nisut, no matter what. But sometimes you won't see it. That's a bread loaf. And it's a monoliteral for T. Just the T. Then you're going to see this. This is literally a glyph of an offering table. The long thing is a table. The thing on top of it is an offering. It's an offering table. It's also, you're going to see that so easily now that you know that's an offering table. That's always going to be at the beginning of an offering formula. That's like the really helpful portion of this. That is a triliteral for Hetep. H second T. Technically this should have an underline underneath it. Hetep. And then P. And then this bread loaf is a biliteral for D. D-I. I know I write it as a J. It's a long story as to why. It's an I. Sort of. In a very weird way. It sort of is an I. So, you might be asking though, if this is technically saying Nisut Hetep D, why did I pronounce it Hetep D Nisut? And that is something called honorific transposition. This word, Nisu, or Nisut, is the word for king. And because the king is the king, you actually write it first in the hieroglyphs. To honor it, we move it to the very, very front. But you actually usually pronounce it last, which is very annoying. You will notice this sometimes when you're looking at the names of different Egyptian gods, or when you're looking at the names of pharaohs that have the names of Egyptian gods in them. Like with Amun-Hotep, guess what? His name is Amun-Hetep, this exact same glyph, Hetep. But when you look at it, in this case, Amun is at the front. It's already at the front. But then you look at Tut-Ankh-Amun. Amun is said at the very end, but it's written at the very, very beginning when you look at the actual hieroglyphs for Tutankhamun. So, it's very confusing, but no matter what orientation these four glyphs are in, it will be pronounced Hetep D Nisut. Now, when you get to how to translate this, there's been a lot of research, like too much research for me to know, and to be honest, my professor didn't really give us the actual resources for where these things have been argued, but he was very, very adamant on how we were supposed to translate the beginnings of an offering formula. And I will say, when you look on the internet, it will not say this way, because this is a very recent, we'll say, discovery, a recent theory within the linguistic community of Egyptologists. So you will see this being translated differently. I wish I had the actual source to be able to tell you what it is. I might be able to find it, but I can't find my notebook. Very honestly though, I can't find my first ancient Egyptian notebook. I cannot find it. So, I might have the source for it. I don't know where it is. But, essentially, it has been it's the tense. We're really talking about what tense this should be in. For a while, you will see it being in the past tense. And now the way that my professor told me that this should be translated as an offering that the king gave. People have said that this is supposed to be in the present tense, giving. like an offering that the king is giving. Now my professor is very adamant that it should be gave or has given is the other option. So has given. Let me move over to this. How do I just like clear the whole thing? Reset. No, not reset view. What do I do? Well, I guess we're just gonna undo all of it. It's gonna take too long. I need to figure out a way to... I guess I could probably do an eyedropper, maybe. Okay. Let me show you what it's supposed to look like. So, you have... And don't make fun of my drawing. I am using a tablet, so sometimes it's hard. I don't know why this is always how I've drawn this. And then you got... Whoop, it's a little shorter than I wanted it. So you have... knee suit. And there's the... this is the T. You got Hetep. Actually, I think it's that. And then you got D. So what this is the AB nominal with the relative form. So you have, sorry, looking for my notes to make sure. Oh, here it is. So in this case, the A, so it's A plus B, or A is B, A equals B is probably better. The A is going to be Hetep. Oh no, I was wrong. Where is the eraser? There we go. A is Hetep, and then this is D Nisut, which is another way you can write it. It can also have a J kind of inserted in there. So literally this is, and this means offering, and this means to give, and this means the king. So remember, the subject comes before the verb. So what we have here is essentially the king gives an offering, which then can essentially be translated as, like, more literally than it actually is. An offering is what the king gives, or has, could also be, or the king has given. So that is kind of where we're at, but the gives is better because we want that ongoing action that we were kind of talking about, that kind of making it into this relative verb, relative form in the perfective, which is going to be kind of, it's not really present, but oh my god. I'm so sorry, guys. I just did it all wrong. Okay, please ignore everything that I said. Because I was looking at this and I was like, gives and has given is not the same thing. I apologize. Gives is what people usually say online when you look at this up. But what it really is the way that my professor has told us to do it is the king gave. I'm so sorry about that. Hello, hello, Ganoza. So what the king gave / has given. So I apologize. So if we get this wrong, we will never know if the king was throwing a party or if the king was getting gifts. Yes. So, again, I apologize. It is the subject becomes before the verb, and so this D means to give. This right here means to give. And, well, thank you. Yeah. Welcome. We're always welcoming to everyone who comes in, especially Egyptians. I just visited Egypt for the first time in February, so I was very, very happy to see it, and it just made my childhood dreams come true, seeing some beautiful, beautiful sights there. We're talking about how to read offering formulas, and we're kind of getting into the first step, which is the Hetep Di Nisut, the big guns. Oh, I clicked the button. Ooh. Ooh. Got your crib is in the pyramid. I would hate that. I would not want to live there because it is so sweaty. But yeah, so the way that you translate this is an offering that the king gave, or that the offering that the king has given, is how you will start this sentence pretty much every single time, because you will see the exact same things. I loved the pyramids, but I will say, there's actually what's it called? An ad. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna drink some water. So, I will just mention, it is not my definition of a tourist trap. My definition of a tourist trap is something in which is something that is going to cost you an arm and a leg and is not going to be worth it. Yes, there are some tourist traps that are historical, but I would not call that a tourist trap, because it is a amazing archaeological site. I would say within the pyramids of Giza there are tourist traps, which are literally things to trap tourists into spending too much money, into making them go back, making them like scams. The tourist traps, in my opinion, are riding the camels or riding the horses within the pyramids of Giza. But going to see the pyramids is not a tourist trap. At least how I've always defined tourist traps. It is a chaotic, crazy, busy place, in the same way that, like, a tourist trap of going into Times Square in New York City is a tourist trap, because people go to see it because it is said to be famous and such things. But I would not call it a tourist trap, because it is a good archaeological site. A tourist trap, in my opinion, is going to the Pizza Hut that's in Giza to go and see a good view of the pyramids, because there are plenty other ways to go and see the pyramids without having to go into the Pizza Hut. It is very, very hot going inside the pyramids, for sure. Dapper Historian, look up the Pizza Hut. If you look up Pizza Hut Giza, you will see what I'm talking about. There is a Pizza Hut, essentially, there's one that's right across the street, and it's actually, not even joking you, the hotel that I stayed in Giza was just right across the street from that Pizza Hut. It's essentially a Pizza Hut that has a rooftop deck, and if you go up to the rooftop deck, it gives you like the best view, in some people's opinion, of the Sphinx and all three pyramids. And it does give you a very, very good view, because it is right across the street from the Sphinx entrance of the Giza pyramids. But my hotel was also one on that other side of the street, and it also gave you a very good thing. No, I don't believe it is a classy pizza. It's just a whole thing for, it's just a whole thing for that people go in, and people most often than not don't actually go and buy Pizza Hut to go upstairs. Like, that's like kind of the nice thing that people are trying to do, is like buy some pizza, go to the rooftop, look at the Sphinx. But most people will just try to go up there to take pictures. And yes, there is also the added thing that he was forced to sell his land to then put the Pizza Hut there. So that's another thing. I will argue, though, that the McDonald's in Luxor is a better view from a restaurant than the Pizza Hut, because it's views over Luxor Temple, which I love. But I digress. Okay, back to... sorry, I'm out of breath. A burger fail? No. I will say, McDonald's in Egypt, way better than here. The burgers are like twice the size. I'm like, that's an insane deal. Me and my dad went back twice, mostly because we couldn't really find a restaurant that we liked in Luxor. But what was I? Where was I? So, the last thing I want to talk about with the Hetepti Nisu is you will notice that the translation of an offering that the king gave, the king is not defined. There's no specific name for the king. It is just the king. You might ask, why? This is a very great trick of the language that ties very deeply into the spirituality of these offering formulas. By not naming the king, this spell, by repeating this over and over and over and over and over again, this will last the test of time. This does not date it. This does not mean that only this one particular king is the person giving the offerings. This means every king is giving the offerings to this deceased person. Because remember, we talked about like the personal aspect of these offering formulas is that the formulas would be written by family members who are giving offerings to their deceased family members. But this also can be used as if they are saying that the offerings that the kings are giving to these really large deities, a portion of those offerings are also going to these deceased people. And that is why the king is mentioned in these. I will say, I have not yet thought about it, except literally right in this moment, that is this a slight form of propaganda in some way? Yes, but technically it's not propaganda for any particular king. Is this meaning that offering formulas were pretty much invented probably by the pharaohs to continually show their power over their people? Probably. There's probably a whole interesting theory about that. Alrighty, let's get to the next part. The next part we're going to look at is what this, again, we're going literally via the sentence. So the next part we're going to look at is the actual gods themselves. So the next thing is that you get an offering that the king gave, and then the next part will be, and insert name of God here. The two most popular gods are going to be these two: Osiris, otherwise known as Usir, and then Inpu, otherwise known as Anubis. These are going to be the two most popular. Another one that's going to be very popular is Wepwawet, who is another jackal deity, possibly wolf deity, but very associated with Anubis. The main reason that these two are going to be associated with offering formulas is that their association with the dead and resurrection and the afterlife. So, ooh, Siribot's working hard. What was I gonna say? So this means that both the king and the god are now giving these offerings to the deceased person. And that is so, essentially, the deceased person is benefiting off of the offerings that were given to that god previously by the king, but are now being relegated to themselves. If you haven't seen the way that Osiris or Anubis's name has been written, this is how it is written. His name is literally Wesir, so this is Wes, this is ear, it is Wes ear. It is two biliterals together, and then the determinative is the determinative for a god. This just means a general god, doesn't have any phonetic sounding to it. Inpu is actually three monoliterals, or four monoliterals altogether. I-N-P-U, Inpu, very simple, very phonetic. And then you have the determinative of a jackal on top of a shrine. Very simple. I'll draw Whip Wawets in just a second. The next thing you're going to have after the god's name is going to be their epithets. Epithets are essentially titles that are given to a specific god. And sometimes they can be used for multiple gods. It's not always the same. To be honest, I am very upset that I have not been able to find a general list of epithets that are used by the gods. I will often find them translated into English, but I will not be able to find the actual hieroglyphs for the epithets of the gods. I was able to find these three images from Reddit, which is unacceptable because I feel like there should be some sort of book or list of all the different epithets for the gods. But these are three that I found for the goddesses Mut, Set, and Ptah, which of course do not apply to the ones that we are talking about today. So I am going to show you, or we're going to have to draw all the different things. It is unacceptable! Dapper. It is unacceptable. It is absolutely unacceptable because I'm honestly shocked. I am shocked. And to be honest, I want to write some sort of paper. I want to sort of do that compiling, but language is not my thing. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it very easily. So I'm going to draw all the ones that I want you guys to draw. How do I there's gotta be new. Don't say. Here we go. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna find my list because there are quite a few. So let's first do Osiris. West. Ooh, nope. Now I'm in white. I gotta be blue. Alright, so Wesir, or Osiris, is an eye. It can either be this, or it can be like the more full one, which is the step. Oh wait, or no, it just has a little thing there. And then the eye. So his epithets, imply a function. Yeah, in some ways. I'll show you these ones and you can judge for yourself, but yeah, I think sometimes they do. So the first one, which is going to be seen by pretty much every different god, is going to be the little flag. And then this symbol, which I don't know what this means. So this is Netcher or great god. Very simple. You're gonna see it by everyone's gonna have this one. Oh, 3 quotation marks. Then you're gonna have don't judge my hieroglyphs, please. I always do that one wonky. Then you're gonna have Neb, Abedu. So Neb is this, which is a little pot. It can be used as an adjective for all or every, but it also means lord. So this means, or lord or lady, lord of, and then Abedu is Abydos. And whenever you see this little sign, which is kind of an X in a circle, that's meant to be a crossroads, and that indicates that it's a city. So that's very easy for you to kind of notice. Then, oh god, I hate drawing this one. Okay. Let's see if I can draw it the fancy way. I hate this one. This one is so hard. Okay, that's as close as we're gonna get. And then, oh dang it, this one's also very hard. There's a bird. It's a very bad bird. And then this is another bird. Whoop. So then this one is Henti. Oh my god. MNTU. This is a long. So this whole thing is a triliteral for Henti, and then this is Imen, and then this is TU, because this is called the TU bird. He's got a little crest on his chest for some reason. So this means, this has a very long name. This is the foremost of the Westerners. It's a very fancy word for pretty much saying he is the most important of the Western people. The Western people being the gods. They believe that the West is the land of the gods, the land of the dead and the land of the gods. And so he is the foremost of the Westerners. He is the most important. He is the one of the head of the Westerners. Okay. So that one's Osiris. I forgot to also write this one, which is also a writing of Osiris. Is this one with the eye. So whenever you see one of these, you can always say, okay, it's going to be, essentially you're going to have to write it as Hetep D Nisut Wesir, and then you'll say Netcher, and you can have multiple of these. You could have all of these. ... The king, lord, god is you, since it's such a Western noble meaning. Yes, so this is very hard because you have to remember that you are correct. These are Egyptologists translating ancient Egyptian words. Like the word pharaoh isn't really in ancient Egyptian language. We translate it as king. You are correct. They obviously, king means a totally different thing to them. The ancient Egyptian king was the son of Ra. Like, he was pretty much a god. Like, he's not just a king. In my opinion, if you have to use, like, modern terminology, he's probably an emperor. Like, in a certain way. Like, a deified emperor. It's very hard to gauge kind of what that means and how that's different. But that's kind of how I guess I'll put it. It's very hard to always kind of say that. But it's a very good point, Paranoid. Very good. Like, we don't really know. Okay. So those are all the ones for Osiris. I'm actually gonna save that one. I'm gonna save these for later. New. Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so now let's go over Anubis's. I'm only going to show you a few of Anubis's. So Anubis, again, can be written as Inpu, as in Anubis. It can be written as, very literally, as J N P U, and then usually we'll have a little tiny shrine, and then I can't really draw a jackal. He always have his tail really long and his arms out. There's a little jackal for you. So, Anubis's is going to, one of his epithets is going to be, it's a little human head. Ooh. And then a snake. A little horned viper. So this is going to be Tepi Juef. And that means, this long sentence, who is atop his mountain? The hierarchy of titles. Yes. Certain titles will be written in a certain order. We have... Yeah. So these are called epithets. These are not necessarily titles. Humans themselves would also have titles if you were of a certain social class. King's daughter, princess. King's daughter and like king's son are going to be like the highest of the high ones if you aren't the king. But then you will have the high priest of Amun, you will have a priestess, you will have a chantress, you will have these words that are different, and often I believe there are theories about the arrangement of those and that the most important would go first after their name. So yes, a lot of the ones for king are just gonna be like, the king almost has more epithets, which are not necessarily titles. I guess in my way, the way I'm using titles is an actual position. You are a scribe. That is a position that you hold. Epithets are more adjectives about you, but they are written as titles. So pharaohs would have kind of both. Like, king is the title. He would be the high priest of something, but also they would say great king, defeater of many. Like, that's not a title, that's just a phrase, just an adjective about him, something describing him. So yeah, there is evidence for it. It's a little wishy-washy sometimes. Okay, so another one for Anubis is gonna be this one. It is not a cross. I don't remember what it's supposed to be, but it's not a cross, obviously. And that thing. So this is Imi Wet, which means, I like this one, who is in his bandages. So these again are describing these are describing Anubis, and Anubis is the god of mummification. He's not the god of the dead, as many people say. He is one of the many gods of the dead. He is the god specifically of mummification. And so who is atop his mountain is a little bit vague on what that necessarily means, but it is, I believe it has to do again with the west and the mountain that is in the west. But who is in his bandages is very clear of like, this is a guy who is bandaged up, this is a guy who it has to do with mummification. Now, the other god that I mentioned was Wep Wa Wet, otherwise known as Wep Wa Wet. Very easy. Wep Wa Wet is another deity. He is either a jackal or a wolf, some sort of canine, not a dog, but very close. And he is also associated with the dead and with the afterlife. Sorry, that I never can draw the horns correctly. This is how you write his name. Wep Wa Wet. And one of his epithets, he actually uses one of these ones. I think he uses who is upon his mountaintop as well. But one of the things he will use is... we will use Neb Ta Jesser, which means Lord of the Necropolis. Anubis, I believe, also uses this one. Technically, this word Jesser is for sequestered land, is what this what this closely literally translates as, but it's been translated as necropolis. Do these properties help to clearly identify the subject and the current state? Do they change? Like the titles and like these epithets, the gods ones, they never change. When you are looking at titles of officials, they will change, and you can see sometimes the but technically anything that you are seeing this on would be at the present state. So I'm trying to think of an example. There's a guy that was kind of the right-hand man of the pharaoh Hatshepsut, and in certain inscriptions of him, he's only listed with a few titles, and then in later inscriptions, he's listed with more titles, as he essentially got promoted over time. So they do occasionally change, but for the most part, it's very difficult to gauge that because you usually only have one or two monuments about the same person. Pharaohs don't often change, because for the most part, you're only looking at them as a pharaoh. But interestingly, one thing that is very rare in ancient Egyptian art are the art of princes. For some reason, I can think of a couple different possibilities as to why, but for some reason, ancient Egyptian princes were very, very rarely depicted until they had become pharaoh. Or until they had gotten like another title. Possibly this is because of just like childhood mortality at the time, or because it was all about the king and you only focused on the king rather than his entire royal family. But we have very, very little depictions of a prince, and honestly, and a princess as well. But one of the places you can see princes is there are actually two tombs. There's quite a few, but there's two very nice tombs in the Valley of the Queens of sons of the pharaoh Ramses III. And he is the boys obviously died young because they are depicted as a child in their tomb. And so it's one of those very interesting things, is that you will only see a pharaoh as an adult and throughout his adult life after he has taken the throne. You will very rarely ever see a depiction of a pharaoh before he takes the throne. It's very strange. But yeah, that's my only thing, is like, yeah, it definitely could be that, Baha. Like, I think it really was. You also have to, I think the biggest thing is you have to remember how long it took for these things to be made. So by the time something could be made, they could already be an adult and they could be a pharaoh, and then there's no point of having an image of him as a child. So it's kind of this, like, it's kind of twofold. It might be a more spiritual reason, but it also might be a more practical reason. Yeah, it does. It's one of the very rare exceptions is the Amarna period, where you have images of Akhenaten with his daughters. The funny thing though is you don't see Tutankhamun. Like, you only see images of the pharaoh and his first wife, his great royal wife, Nefertiti, and their daughters. Since Tutankhamun was not Nefertiti's son, and because he was then heir to the throne, you don't see images of him. One of the only images of a so-called childhood King Tut is in the tomb of his nursemaid named Maya. Even though, technically, when you look at her, it's essentially, it has King Tut sitting in her lap as she is like, I don't think she's nursing him, because I think she's just I think she's caressing his face. He's almost a grown adult, but what it is implying is that she took care of him as a child, and so the image that you see of him is as a child, even though he looks like a full-grown adult. But at that point, he was a king. So you can't show the king as a child. It might be something about, like, children being weak in some way. It very much could be that, which is a little bit harsh thing to say, but it's kind of true. Okay, back to the presentation. Okay. All right. So, after you have the whole beginning, so this sentence now sounds like this: Hetep di Nisu, we'll use Osiris, Weser Aa, or Necher Aa, Neb Abiju, which will be translated as an offering that the king gave and Osiris. And is not really a word in ancient Egypt, so you have to just kind of assume it. And Osiris, the great god, Lord of Abydos. That's where our sentence is right now. Now we get to the actual offerings. So the offerings are listed in a variety of ways, and there are a ton of them, and we're going to go through a lot of them just for fun, pretty much. So this is also where we will sometimes have that sejameth being used. Specifically, they will use DF. So that long, like, triangle, DF, he gives. Even though we're not actually going to say he, we're actually going to use this as translating as giving. So an offering that the king gave, and Osiris, great god, Lord of Abydos, giving, and then we're going to list all of the different things that they're giving. One of the things that you might see at the very beginning here is you will see this glyph, and this is all 4 of these objects. And this, as the thing says, it is saying a voice offering. So to be giving a voice offering. The glyphs that are used right here are a house. This is the pair for house, and then this is Heru. So this is an oar, an oar glyph. So again, a biliteral and a triliteral, and this says Peret Heru, and this means going forth by voice, is what it literally translated as, or as a voice offering. So it says giving a voice offering. And again, remember, a voice offering, this is how it's literally saying, is that instead of us actually giving you physical offerings, we are giving you a voice offering. We are saying this spell over and over and over again because our voices are going to be taken as an actual offering in the afterlife. So the way it's always written is with these 2 glyphs and then these 2 on either side of it. So you got bread and you got beer. Even if you had literally no dollars in the bank or nothing to barter with, at the very, very least, you are going to get bread and beer. Bread and beer are going to be your basics. These are going to be both the things that every single person in ancient Egypt is at least going to be eating. This is going to be, in certain low classes, this is going to be your payment for your job, or if you're not like a farmer or anything. If you're like an artisan or something, you're going to be paid in wheat, or not wheat really, in barley or emmer, and you are going to have to take that to go somewhere to make that into bread and to make it into beer that you can eat. And so the very, very basics, everyone is getting bread and beer in their offerings, in their daily lives. Bread and beer, bread and beer, bread and beer. The way that you say bread and beer, I'll write it out later, but this is bread is tea, just a tea. And then you got beer, which is henket. Unfortunately, Paranoid, they were not, because the beer back then was not very alcoholic. It was simply something that was better tasting and slightly healthier for you than the water. It was not clean, which was not clean. So they were not really alcoholics. This is the same thing goes with like Greeks, and I mean, they drink a lot of wine. And Egyptians would drink wine if you were really, really fancy. But this beer, this is not fancy beer. This is very, very simple beer. The rest of these we are going to go over. So let me write out these. I'm going to save this as well. Anubis. Okay, let's go over the offerings. Beer, not the beer. Yeah. Okay, so the offerings. So, you got tea for beer, for bread, sorry, not for beer. You have, which literally looks like, it's either like this or like a jug. This is for Henket for beer. So those are going to be your two basic ones. Then we're going to get into the crazy ones. All right, let's see if I can draw this nicely. We're going to go very basic on this one. Or okay. So this is going to be ka, or ka-u if we want it to be plural, which is going to be oxen. So some sort of meat is going to be given as an offering. You also have or they do also need to have eyes. That is going to be aped-u, which is going to be fowl. Specifically, probably a goose. I don't think they had ducks necessarily. The simple one is going to be this, which is sesh. Sesh, which is going to be alabaster. See, now we're getting a little bit fancier. We're getting a little bit, it's kind of like at the very basics, you're gonna get bread, beer, fowl, and oxen. Then you get to the little bit more fancy options for the offerings. If you were really, really rich, you would offer some of these much fancier items. Another one is going to be this, which is menhet, which is going to be cloth or clothing. The deluxe package. Yes, we're going into more of the deluxe package portion of this. Let's go over some of the other really big ones. There are so many. So let's do this one. This is a very long word. Oh, that was really bad. Yeah, I'll make this longer. Okay. Oh god, no, I did that wrong. So this one is, and there are a couple ways to write this as well, but I'll show you this one first. So this is Senecher, which is incense. So it's literally S-N-T-R, and then you have this, which is indicating that it's like a really good incense because it's the incense of the king, or incense of the gods, excuse me. And then this is supposed to be the incense smoke coming out of the little pot. This little twirly thing right here. Oop. So, Senecher is one of the really popular ones that you're gonna get. do. Or this one has another longer one. This is all supposed to be connected. I'm really bad at drawing that one. So this is going to be... Oh no, I did that wrong. Merhet, which is going to be oil. So again, going to be really, really nice. Getting nicer and nicer things. Let me think which one. There's so many on this list that I want to include, but I can fit a couple more. This one's actually pretty simple. It's going to be Irep, which is wine. I also like this one because it's kind of random. This is going to be very similar. Oh, no, go back. So this is going to be Irech et, which is going to be milk. Milk. But why would they list them all? Showing off the riches status, keeping inventory, or is there meaning behind the items, or to keep track of exchanges? So again, you just gotta write them. You don't actually have to bring these to them. Oh, sorry, there's an ad break. Give me 1 second. Take some water. I was trying to see if I have a formula up here. I don't. Let's do. I'll add one more. It's a very good question, Paranoid. So it's, again, a lot of these things are twofold because there are spiritual reasons why to do this, and there are also practical reasons. Spiritually, it is to show that you can afford enough to be able to give your deceased relatives everything that they would need. Practically, it is a way of showing off your riches, for sure. If you get a big enough stone that can fit all of these being listed, in very much a way it can be status. The other thing with this, I'm actually going to give you, right after this, I'm going to give you a shorthand way to say all of this. And this is a very funny thing that we would have to look so much deeper in to actually figure out why people would do certain things and why we would try to think stuff. But probably it is a mixture of status and also proving that you can give your relative everything and showing what they would need in the afterlife, because you need all of these things, at least what the Egyptians believe you needed. One of the other ones I like is this one is Shemat Nefer, which is fine linen, otherwise known as best linen. Necher in this case, even though it is the same word for God, Necher in this one is good. Is good, is great. Hi, Freya! Then for offerings to the dead or on other occasions of birth? No. Birth is not really talked about because you don't really have anywhere to put it. These are going to be in tombs, on offering stela, on on coffins, on sarcophagi, birth is not really talked about in ancient Egypt. It's kind of funny. There's only a very few depictions of women giving birth or pregnant women in general. But in general, without the writing of it, we could assume, yes, that offerings might have been, well, actually, no. Sorry, my mind is racing. Offerings would not be given to a child at birth, like we'll say, like Jesus and the wise men. Offerings would have been given to the temple, potentially at somebody's birth or at a good point in your life. The offerings in these cases are not necessarily offerings of thanks or offerings of, like, they're not necessarily gifts. These are things that are just being given just to help this person survive in the afterlife. It is very practical in that way. So Freya, we're looking at offering formulas specifically. So these formulas are put literally everywhere. Coffins, pretty much every single coffin or sarcophagi is going to have an offering formula on it. A stela that is sitting outside of a tomb, any sort of tomb if it's a decorated tomb, if it has writing in it, there's going to be offering formulas everywhere. Offering formulas are a virtual way for living family members to give deceased family members items without having to literally give them items. So while probably immediately after their death, yeah, they're care packages. That's literally what they are. That's such a good way to put it. Yes, these are care packages to family members who are dead. So at first, oh my god, okay, yes, another loophole. The Egyptians loved loopholes, and we're gonna talk about another loophole right after this. Okay, so this is so good. So, going with the care package analogy, after a person's death, the care package would be an actual package with goodies, with snacks, with fun things to play with, and da-da-da-da-da. And the things that are buried with them are the literal things that they would need. Eventually, though, they either become lazy, they either become too poor, time has gone on and it's been so long since their family member has been gone, they're sending them e-gift cards. That's what offering formulas are. Offering formulas are e-gift cards that are virtual ways of continuously, or calling them, instead of just like they are just continuously giving them things without actually giving them anything. It's a very, very good way to talk about this. So yeah, we're now deep into the offering formulas. We're gonna get to the other side. No, but the order that I'm writing these in are going to be the most common. Bread and beer are always going to be included. If they are not included, is a very weird thing. Bread and beer will always be included. And then, so it's like, number one. If anything, then these two will be included. And then all of the rest of these, I would say these three are the most common, with incense and oil. Incense and oil are also common. And then these are like 4 and 5s and like the least common. So 1, always, most of the time, sometimes, very rarely, kind of. I want to see, okay, I'm going to add this one last one at the end. There's quite a few left on these and I'll read them out afterwards, but the one I wanted to draw for you because I think it's a pretty cool one, but it's also for the very, very rich up and up. Oh no, I already flipped it up. There we go. That's a hand. It looks really bad, but ignore it. And these are owls. So specifically, look at this glyph. The eye, and then a line underneath it. And then 1, 2, 3 little dots. Actually, no, they're not dots. Sorry. I don't like how this thing zooms in. It's not zooming in center. Sorry, they're not dots. They're circles. I want to make sure of that. So this is MelissainDeNile, which is coal, otherwise known as black eye paint. So this is something that would be listed as, and so yes, Baha, you think it's a tired eye. It's not. It's an eye with makeup on it. This is the coal that would go underneath and around the ancient Egyptian eye. Any theory, whatever a specific set of items had to say? No. Paranoid, these again are these are the basic needs of the Egyptian. So, nothing specific about that. So did they not believe that once they were in the afterlife, they wouldn't need for anything? No. The ancient Egyptian afterlife is exactly like real life, but in a land of the gods. So you need to do everything that you did in real life, and you need everything that you needed in real life. You still need to work. You still need to eat. You still need to sleep. You need a bed. You need food. You need water. You need all of these different things. So you need all of that, and that's why these offering formulas, and that's why all the things that are buried with pharaohs and buried with normal people, they are all things that you are going to use in the afterlife. Shoes, clothes, toys, games, eye makeup, jewelry, chariots, like lots of different stuff. No, because they don't have money. They don't have money, Freya. Ancient Egyptians didn't have money until the Greeks. So everything is a barter system. So you still have to do all that stuff. But if you know anything about shopties are small little figurines that ancient Egyptian pharaohs would get, that if you didn't want to work in the afterlife, you would get these servants to work for you in the afterlife. And that is why you see models. If you guys remember from the Mechaholic, thank you so much for the follow. Excuse me, guys. I'm just having such bad heartburn. The things that these little shopties would do the work for you. And if you remember from last month's guest lecture all about Meketra and the models that were found in those tombs, those models were meant to come alive and help make the beer and make the bread and sail your boat and blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. So the rich and famous could add these guys. But then remember, they're just happy, like they're happy they're in the afterlife. I would mention the items the person liked. In what? In the offering formulas? These sometimes, but most of the offering formulas are more physical. They're not like specific items. They're general items that people would need to live, kind of. Food. They're mostly food. It's mostly food. The oil and the incense and the alabaster and the clothing, like those are all other things, but most of it's gonna be food. Sorry, I'm saving these because I want to use them for later. So, as the Egyptians, they love loopholes. But if they're already dead, what would happen if they have no food? They would essentially die in the afterlife. They would be forgotten. It's not... This is the funny thing, is that the ancient Egyptians don't have a hell. They don't have a concept of what happens if you either your heart gets eaten, if you're talking about the death of the afterlife theory of your heart being weighed against a feather, they don't talk about what happens really if your heart is heavier than the feather of Ma'at. They don't really talk about what happens if your offerings are not there. They just don't really talk about it. It's like a known, which is probably why they don't talk about it. It's that the ancient Egyptians know that there is something, and they probably just don't write it down. It's a more an oral history, and they just know that you can't live like that. But obviously there were plenty of poor people that wouldn't have those opportunities to have things dropped with them and left with them in their burials, so it obviously wasn't that important to some people. Or they just accepted that they would not get to the Field of Reeds. So it's a very, I don't know. I feel like their concept of the dead is so forgiving in a lot of ways. But in a lot of other ways it doesn't make a lot of sense. Um, okay. Also making sure I'm good on time. Okay, so this is the other loophole when it comes to the offerings, and I'm going to write out the whole sentence for you and then explain it. Feel free to keep asking questions, but I'm going to wait until I finish writing this. These are some very weird hieroglyphs in this sentence. Oh, that was a very bad owl. That's an owl. Okay, so this writes... The T's are if you want this to be female, which is why they're in parentheses. Oh my god. Yeah. So this long sentence, which you would say as hetet, nebet, neferet, wabet, ankhet, necher in, is how you say that. It does take time to develop that level of guilt. So this sentence means, so you might find this sentence after the voice offering. So remember this is where we're at our offering formula, is a offering that the king gave, and Osiris, great god, lord of Abydos, giving, instead of saying giving a voice offering of bread, beer, fowl, oxen, incense, alabaster, fine linen, oil, coal, like, again, listing it all this off, what you might have is an offering that the king gave, and Osiris, lord of Abydos, great god, giving this. And this is translated as everything good and pure on which a god lives. Again, loophole and shortcut. Instead of listing out all the other things, all you have to write is everything good and pure on which a god lives. So essentially saying that all of the different offerings that we are saying, that is what a god lives on, and that is now what you are going to live on as a deceased person living in the afterlife with the gods. And so this is just, it just cracks me up, because the Egyptians, like, they just, sometimes those scribes, they just get so lazy, and they don't want to write out all the different glyphs for all the different offerings, and so they come up with that. And that is what this means. This is the everything. Whoa, sorry, that did not mean that was meant to be a bracket. This is the everything. This is the good. This is pure. This is lives. This is God. Yeah, that's the sentence. Pretty much. So that is something that you could write instead of it, just to make it even simpler for you. Especially this is good if you have a short amount of space. The other thing I will show you is the word for offering menu. Potentially, yeah, it really depends on what you're carving this on. But yeah, potentially this would be shorter, which would be a less amount of space. But it doesn't necessarily mean it would be cheaper, because it really depends on where you're writing these things. The other thing I wanted to show you is this. out. Oh my god. Ooh, god dang it. So this is a... Oh, I just wrote all the wrong letters in the wrong order. This is called a debet... hetepet. This is what we call an offering menu. If you remember at the beginning, I mentioned an offering menu. The only reason that it's slightly different is that instead of writing this entire offering spell as a sentence, which is how we've been translating it, all they're doing is they are listing all the different options in little boxes. It looks like a giant graph, pretty much, or a giant Excel spreadsheet with all the different offerings. And usually the offerings are numbered. They'll list like, we want 10,000 bread. Like they all are like this. No. What if they put something nasty in the care package? I have not seen an option of this. No real options for that. Oh, I forgot to tell you all the other ones. There's all these other offerings. So there's an ibex, there's a gazelle. There's also tons of different types of gooses. So there's a sere goose, a terep goose, or a cherub goose. There's an oryx, there's a menhet bird, there's a setch goose. Like there's lots of different types of geese and stuff. Any noticeable deviations from the norm? Like for offerings being listed? Not really. All right. I'm gonna save this last one. I want to get to the part where we're all going to translate stuff. So again, this is a little image of those offerings. So you got the voice offering, you got the bread and beer, you got the oxen, you got the fowl, you got the linen, you got the alabaster. These are kind of the basics. Going to be the most common ones. Okay. The next portion is going to be the name. We're only going to briefly talk about this. This is going to be, after that long, long list of offerings, they are going to have the name of the deceased person. This is obviously one of my names and hieroglyphs I make. They're not going to be in a cartouche because offering formulas are used for pharaohs, but not really, because they have an entire cult and temple that are going to be giving them offerings. They don't really need offering formulas like this, but sometimes they do have them. I will say they do. I'm not going to say that they don't, but it's not as common. That's not going to be the ones that we're going to be looking at. So the person's name might be introduced with the water sign, the little squiggly sign, which is an N. That's how you pronounce it. It means of in a lot of different ways. So it would be, say, all the offerings, or sorry, no, not of, for. It means of in other contexts, but it means for in this context. So blah, 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 offerings for Melissa, pretty much. If you ever heard me talking about ancient Egyptian names, you're going to know that ancient Egyptian names are sentences. They are written as sentences. They are not just written phonetically, like how you write them when you find the hieroglyphs alphabet, quote unquote, online and you write it phonetically. That's not how ancient Egyptian names work. In this case, this is a girl's, I believe this girl's name is Alyssa, is the one I grabbed from my various names and hieroglyphs. Her name is Meruti, which means the well-beloved. And I think it's Alyssa means the beloved one, is what the English definition of it is. So the well-beloved. And that is using the biliteral for mare with the R afterwards, just to make sure you know that that's an M and an R, and then uti. Actually, this might be a determinative. Yeah, I think it might be a determinative. But yeah, so this means like the well-beloved. So when you're looking at offering formulas, you will eventually get to a name, but you might not even realize it's a name because there's going to be nothing to distinguish it as a name versus any other word in this. So as long as you know all the different options for the most popular offerings, you will be able to find where that stops, and then you can assume immediately after it is going to be the name. Again, there might be an N in front of it and then the name, so you always kind of look out for that as well. You always can write the actual translation for the name. Otherwise, you can always just write it phonetically, like how you're saying it, Meruti. You just say it at the end like that. You also, not all the time, so one of the things that we talked about is the determinative. So the determinative of the woman here at the end is telling us that this is a female person's name. Not all the time are you going to see a determinative in an offering formula, especially, I'm actually curious for this one. Yeah. So all of these names, all of these lines down here, these are names. They don't have determinatives because the determinative is actually meant to be the man sitting here. So it's really, really weird, but that's his name. It's very strange, but that his name is that. The determinative is there because you can see him there, and also because there are feminine and male endings for son and daughter, so you don't need the determinative, which is a little bit confusing as well. Oh, I forgot the other one. Briefly, I forgot to mention, I forgot to find an image of it. Sometimes, this is not always, sometimes you are going to see this glyph in front of the name. This says Imahi, which means the venerated one. Venerated one. Essentially, this is talking that this person is blessed, and because this is the person that is using the offering spell, that the offering spell is for. And this is sometimes going to come in front of the names, which is helpful, because if you see this and you say, ha, that means the name is starting immediately after these two signs, which is quite helpful. That's not always the case, but sometimes you'll see it. After the name, you are going to see this. This is Mahaheru, true, which means true of voice or justified. This is how you write it, like, fully. For the most part, all you're going to see is these two glyphs. This little, it's supposed to be a platform for a statue, and then an oar. But here it's like the sickle, that platform, the hand, the oar, and then the chick. But most of the time you're only going to see these two symbols. Which, when we look back at this one, you will see them right here. This one has a bread loaf in between of it, and that's fine. But this is Mahaheru. You can even see it up here. If you see Mahaheru after somebody's name, it means they are dead. That true of voice, that justified, means that they are deceased. And that is, there's a spiritual reason for that, and I don't really know, I don't really know why, but I think it's supposed to be like, I can't think of the reason why that is translated as it. Well, what it literally means is true of voice, because, or order of voice, because ma'a, or actually no, this is not ma'a, this is something different. But yeah, true of voice or justified. So, does anybody have any questions? Because that is technically the ending of an offering formula, and we're going to look at a lot of them, and we're going to translate some of them together if we want to look at them a little bit more detailed. So, let's look at this one all together. Excited? Excited? I'm excited. So, we might like go back and forth between the image, the drawing and the image. So, let's do this all together. What we have here Hi, Mart. Hey, Magecraft. Yes, only pharaohs' names are written in a cartouche. So most of the time you're not going to see pharaohs in an offering formula just because they have better things to do than the offering formulas that are meant for lower classes, and not even lower classes, but lower upper classes. But they have an entire cult that will live after their death that will be giving them offerings forever, so they don't need offering formulas as much, but they're around, but you won't see them very much off. The ones that we'll be looking at are not about pharaohs, but yes, pharaohs' names are in cartouches. In some very rare exceptions, their queens are as well, but that's pretty much super rare. There's only a few that we know of that do that. But very good question. Thank you for following in on the TikTok live. God, I'm sleepy. My voice already hurts, but we're okay. We've reached technically the end, but we're gonna do this one together. So should I write this one out? You're very welcome. I think I'm gonna write this out so that I can draw and we can all see it together. How am I gonna be able to see this on both? Okay, actually. There we go. Alright, I'm gonna draw this out and then we will all do it together. Yes, exactly. That's why these are genuinely pretty simple for people to learn, because it's a formula. You're going to be able to see it. Oh my god. It's not how I wanted to start this. You're going to be able to see it form very easily, and that's why I'm very confident that people will be able to read these, like if you see it at a museum. Oh, it's supposed to be pointy. Oh my god, ignore my bad writing. I should have wrote this before. Oh my god, I hate some of these. Some of these are very hard for me to write. And some of them I write very blocky. Now some of these you guys won't know, and that's okay, because that's when we look at the dictionary. Okay, that's the first line. Let's do the first line first, and then I will rewrite the second line. Okay. So, what I always do is I start with writing the hieroglyphs that I recognize. Again, like, you guys are just gonna be able to read this, but I'm gonna do it as I would actually do it. So, we have Hetep, D, Nisut. And sometimes what I do is I draw like this. So that's the Hetep D Nisut. What is this? Do you guys remember what this one was? The eye. Oh, and then I can write at the bottom. I can write, because I already know what the translation will always be, no matter what. An offering that the... Whoop. Skipped a word. King gave Osiris. Good job, Baha. So Weser. And we do and Osiris. Then what we'll have here is a little bit different. Let me make sure, I'm double checking because I think it's a little bit different than the one I showed you guys. Yeah. Let me make sure I know which one this is. I think I do, but I want to check. Ah, there it is. Ah, I know what this one is. So this is Neb for Lord. And remember what I said, that this little circle with the X in the middle means a city? If you look down here, you'll see the one that you might recognize that we talked about, which was Lord of Abydos, of Abeju. But this one is a different city. So this one is actually Neb. Let me make sure I know how to write it. Jeju. Or, sorry. Jed-u. Because the D with the line underneath it is a J. So it is Jed-u. Neb-Jedu, which is Lord of Busiris, which is a city. And then we see this one. So this is, so you say this is a section, and this is a section. And then this one is going to be Necher Aa, meaning very simply, great God. Pretty simple. Then you're going to have, again, Neb. And this one, which is, making sure I'm spelling it right, Abed. Actually, is it Abedu or Abeju? No, it's Abedu. Jew. Abeju. So Lord, and then this one is Lord of Abydos. Abydos. There we go. And then this is a little bit different. It's almost super simple. It's almost like what I showed you guys before. This is actually going to be DF. So it's that verb meaning to give, and the F for he or him. So you can say he gave, or you can just say giving. In programming for robust communications, would have a header and ending. Yeah, so unfortunately, for the most part, there are no start or end signs in Egyptian. There is one that is used for a particular type of sentence. It's a little quail chick, like this one right here, and a little reed leaf. It's called the EU. The EU, the reed leaf, and then the quail chick is a beginner of a sentence, but it's only used for one type of verbal predicate. The thing about this is that because these offering spells are not going to be written in like books of the dead, these are going to be written by themselves. And so while it seems like that Hetep Dinisu is like a great precursor, like a very good header, it technically isn't. It's just a verb sitting at the beginning, like it would in any other sentence. It's just because these are always by themselves, you'll be able to recognize them so clearly because they're the start of the sentence. But technically, it's just the start of a text. And so if it continues on, you might not know the difference for it. Okay, so that's the first part. Let me pull up the second part, and I'll draw it down here. Okay. Okay. So, from what you guys have learned, what is going to be the next things on this list that I am writing right now? losing track of my... Oh, I see you're getting some of it. Let's get excited. You guys are already learning. Okay, this one does have a tricky thing at the end, but that's okay. Which I'm realizing now because I didn't look at it before. But that's okay. I'm gonna try to see if I can fit this. Need to move this over slightly so that I can fit the last two things. Okay. Good and pure things. Paranoid, you're getting so good. Exactly. So, what you are, so what you guys are seeing are exactly what you guys said. Oh my god, I'm losing all my pages. I'm looking, these are all in the wrong order now. Ah, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Yank. Okay, so you have parrot, Heru, or voice offering. Well, I'll say a voice offering. And then you'll see T for bread and oh no, it's right here. I want to make sure I'm spelling. Henket for beer, so bread, beer. Then we have Ka'u, and we have Apedu, so bread, beer, oxen, fowl. Whoop! I spelled fowl wrong. Fowl. The next one we have is Sesh, which is the alabaster. And then we have the Menhet, which is the cloth. And then, although it looks slightly different than how I wrote it, we have, oh my god, I'm gonna run out of room. I'm gonna run out of room. We have the Het, Nebet, Nefert, Wabet, Anket. I'm running out of room. Well, it goes on longer, but I'm still gonna run out of room. Anket, Netcher, Im, which, if you guys remember, is everything good and I'm gonna write this way at the bottom so that we can everything good and pure on which the god lives. Although it doesn't need a period. Very good. Please number them. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Is that good? I'm gonna scan in, I forgot to do this before, I'm gonna scan in all my notes about this and put them in the resource file, which you can get either by clicking exclamation point resources and going to the first Google Drive link, or you can go, if you're on my TikTok, you can go to the link in my bio and there's a scroll down and you'll see it. If you go to the link in my Discord in the like Meet Melissa, I think I still have that link for the like it's what is it now? It's a card. CAAR or is it CARRD? That should be in my Discord as well. But yeah, do exclamation point resources is where you'll get that on Twitch. It's the first drive. There's a second drive that's about the bioarchaeology from Mark's stuff, but the first drive is the one that has it. And I'm gonna scan all these in so you can see them. Okay, so we're now at this part. So this is that whole section. Now, this is where it gets a little different. And this is not always the same, but it's a little bit different. So what we have here, and I'm gonna write the beginning portions. I'm gonna write it down here. I should have color coded this, but I did not. So we're gonna write N, Ka, N. And that's this stuff right here. So the squiggly line is N, the raised arms are Ka, and then the N at the bottom. N, Ka, N. Remember I said that after the offerings, we're going to get the name. Now, this could be the name, but I also know what a Ka is. Has anyone ever heard what a Ka is before? I might have been talking about it. There's definitely some videos over in my TikTok about what a Ka is. A Ka is a part of the human soul in the Egyptian religion. And the Ka is frequently the portion that, yes, it's not necessarily protective. Every single spirit is protective. The portion of the Ka is the part that needs sustenance. The Ka is the portion of the soul that stays in the afterlife that needs the offerings. So you're not really feeding yourself, you're feeding your Ka, a small section of your soul. It's basically karma or fate in the Dark Tower series. Very cool, Rethus. It's not really what a Ka is in ancient Egyptian thought. There's a couple different parts of the Egyptian soul that I think would fit better with that. But yeah, that's what a Ka is, pretty much, which is pretty cool. I like that. I didn't know that's in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. That's very interesting. So yeah, so what you're not exactly feeding the deceased person, you're feeding your Ka. You're feeding that portion of your soul. And the Egyptians have 8 parts of their soul. They need them all in the afterlife. Does your Ka to die at that moment? That is very interesting. It's close. It's very close, but the parts of the Egyptian soul are not really well understood, I think, in general, even by non-Egyptologists and stuff. Yeah, that is very interesting. So this says N, Ka, N. And then you see the thing that we said earlier, which is... these things are all getting out of order. No, okay. So then you see what we called the Imahi, which is this. And remember, if you see the Imahi, then you know that the name is coming at. There is no lowest part. They're all equal. There are less understood parts and slightly, I won't say there's less important parts because you need all the parts. I always forget them off the top of my head, but there's the Ba, there's the Ka, there's the Ren, which is the name. There's the Ib, which is the heart. There's, I don't remember. I always forget the other. I forget the ones that we don't talk about as much or we don't know as much about. There is a Wikipedia article, but it's, if you look up Egyptian soul in Wikipedia, I think there's a ancient Egyptian conception of the soul. So there's the Ket, which is the physical body, the Sa, which is the spiritual body, the Ren, which is the name or the identity, the Ba is the personality, the Ka is the vital essence, the Ib is the heart, the Shuet is the shadow, the Sekhem is the power or the form. I guess I would say the Shuet or the Sekhem are probably the ones that are not as talked about as much. Honestly, if you look at the Wikipedia, you'll be able to see like which ones are the ones we don't know about. As it says, Sekhem, power, form. Little is known about the Egyptian interpretation of this portion of the soul. Most scholars define Sekhem as the living force or life force of the soul, which exists in the afterlife after all judgment has been passed. It is defined in the Book of the Dead as the power and as a place within which Horus and Osiris dwell in the underwood. And the shadow is literally like the shadow. Potentially. But the other thing is that like the Ba is something that is the one that is free to travel in between the afterlife and the living world. So like each one has its own reasons. The Ren is very important because it's the name. It's literally like if you know the name of something, you have power over it. So it's the whole reason why we have books of the dead that are essentially shortcuts for you to know the names of demons so that you can defeat them. And so by repeating your name, it's very similar to the kind of more modern phrase where it's like you die twice. You die when your physical body dies, and you die when your name is being forgotten. Very similar to like Coco, if you've ever seen that movie. The Egyptians kind of believe that if your name is forgotten, you're kind of gone. Your part of your soul is missing now. So that's why you write your name everywhere. Okay, so then you get the Imahi. So that means that the rest of it is the name. Now here's the key thing, my friends, my fellow dudes. I didn't translate this before we started, so I don't know what the name of this is. I gotta look up what that bird is. But I'm also making sure that I don't have this written down somewhere else because this seems familiar to me. And I'm wondering if nope, not that one. I'm wondering if this is a popular one to talk about. No, I gotta figure out. It's not Keith. It's not Keith. Oh, where is it? This is, you can see though that this is a monoliteral. Well, actually, why is his name written like that? I actually don't know why his name's written like that. Let me find out what this bird means. I don't remember what this bird is. It's like a heron or something. It's not a hoopoe. It's an ibis. That's what it is. It probably means his name is Ach. Maybe. I literally don't know where I found this now, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to figure out where it is. But we're going to leave it blank for now. So on which the god lives, and then you say, for the Ka of blank. And then remember the last portion is the last portion of the sentence is always going to be Maha Heru, meaning true of voice. All right. So there you go, guys. bird identification book. So Baha, if you look in the resources file, you will see a gardener's sign list. And gardener's sign list will tell you all the different birds, and what phonetic sound and what words they make out of those birds. So yes, there is a bird identification book and an animal identification book for the glyphs. Absolutely. Would I want to be mummified? Probably not. I have joked that I would want to be donated to the body farm, and if I was donated to the body farm, I would ask them to make me mummify me for the body farm. But if I was getting normal buried, I probably would. I don't know what I would want, but if I was going to the body farm, yeah, mummify me. Use me as a test. Also, Rethus, if you don't know what the body farm is, I can explain what the body farm is as well. It's also a wild thing to just drop out of nowhere. Let's briefly just go back to just chatting for a second. Okay, so the body farm is there are quite a few, but the original one is in Tennessee. No. Kentucky? Kentucky. It might be Kentucky. The body farm is a place that was established at a university, either in Kentucky or Tennessee. I can't remember the difference. Because for the study of forensic anthropology and as a way for people to donate their body to science, and they would donate their body to the body farm, and the body farm essentially places the bodies in different positions and in different conditions so that they can study how bodies decompose over time to help authorities when they are trying to identify, in the cases of homicides, trying to identify how long a body has been sitting out in certain places. And so they do it in lots of different scenarios where they will put it out in the hot, deep sun, or they'll put it out and they'll bury it, they'll cover it in concrete, and they'll observe like animals and bugs and decomposition and see how long things are happening, so that they can study it and write it down so that forensic anthropologists, when they are working homicide cases, they can say, hey, this body has been here exactly X amount of days. So I would say if I wanted to really be mummified, I would send myself to the body farm with the strict instructions that I must be mummified in the very, very traditional Egyptian way. Which I think would be very funny. You could go to the body farm and ask to be put in a garbage can. Yes, we can. I'm gonna save this. What's going on? We're gonna look at another offering formula. But I'm not gonna write it, we're just gonna read it and translate it. So let me pull up one that I think will be easy for us. We'll go with this one, I think. I actually want to see if I can try to find the one that I have there to see if I can find out what the name was. It was this one. Let's see if they translated it. Oh, interesting. Okay. I know where I messed up there. This is an interesting one. I didn't even catch this time. So the this word, this is actually a word. This is not a name. This is a normal word, which I thought was odd, and I was like, wait a second, I think there's something weird. This is for the cause, and remember, I didn't even notice this. It should be the cause of the ancestors. So it's actually a word for ancestors or the revered ones. Specifically, the word is Ahu. We're gonna write that down. So it is actually, this is actually a general offering formula, which I've never really seen before, which is why this is tripping me up. This is not necessarily for an actual deceased person. This is a general offering formula for all of the ancestors, for all of the revered ones and such. So it's a little bit weird because it's not exactly for an exact person. Okay, give me 2 seconds. Let me go find another one. What was your specific question, Paranoid, about the offerings? Did you just want to see some of the examples again? I'm trying to find a simple one for us to read. I'll show you guys this one because it's not the best one, but it's a short one, so we'll just read. Real world examples. Okay, so I'll show you guys this one briefly. This is not going to have those offerings, but I'll just show you this because this is on a real world example. Okay. There, I gotta make a. Sorry on TikTok if this is not as close up. So this is from the British Museum. This is a stela, an offering. This is like a huge, long, it's a false door, pretty much, so it has a lot of different texts. But at the very, very top, you see we have a man and a woman sitting across from an offering table. This is an offering table. It looks wild. It's pieces of bread that are stuck straight up so you can see them. But you can see here that we have 2 short offering spells. HetepDinisu Inpu. So we have Anubis here, and we have one of his epithets. God dang it, why do I keep losing? I keep putting all these pieces of paper out of order. Oh my god, I'm literally holding it in my hand. So we have actually, these are actually 2 ones that I don't know, but it should say, this should have the text on here because the British Museum is pretty good at putting the text in. It should say here. The text above and on each side of this panel contain Washaki's titles and 2 short HetepDinisu formulas. The HetepDinisu formulas on the side of the panel are continued down the outside columns of the false door proper and are terminated by small standing figures of Washaka. This actually does not have the... It does not have the translation. Fun. Okay. Let's look at this one, because this one has at least a good one. So this is, what's this guy's name? Mati. Very easy. So this one also is super detailed because the Met has really great high quality photos. So the offering formula starts all the way over here. So we have HetepDinisu Inpu. Then we have Tepi Juef. And then we also have Imi Wet. So remember, this is an offering that the king gave, and Anubis, who is atop his mountain, who is in his bandages. And then this one also is added, is the Nebta Jesser, Lord of the Necropolis. Then we have the voice offering, the Peret Heru. We have the tea, the bread, the beer, the henket. Now here is another slight difference. they're actually putting the number. So this is 1,000. Ooh, I gotta check that. Oh, I gotta check that because I can't remember if that's actually 1,000. Weird. Oh, I put it over here. Let me check my numbers. I'm very bad at numbers. Except when we play, what's it called? The words. When we play Forewarned, because now they added numbers in there. Yes, I was right. That's 1,000. So that is the sign for 1,000. So this is saying 1,000 of bread, 1,000 of beer. This is actually giving specific numbers on how much they are fictionally donating. Then you get 1,000 of, you get these ones, paranoid, ka'u, apeju. The oxen head and the fowl head. Then you get 1,000 of, you know what I'm realizing? There's sections that have fallen out of this. So, this is actually, I'm wondering if this is linen instead of, I'm wondering if that's linen instead of the alabaster. I think I'm probably... I'm just checking other signs to see what it could be. No, I think that is supposed to be the alabaster. So then you get the sesh for alabaster. And you get the mehnet for the cloth. 1,000 of each. Then you get 1,000 of, and then look, it's our phrase again, which I always love this because it looks like a smiley face. So we get 1,000 of the hetet, the, wait, doing this again. Yeah, hetet, so hetet, nebet, neferet, wabet, interesting. So the everything good and pure bread and beer. Or is that supposed to be? It's so close. It's everything pure and good, but then this is different. Does this say everything good and pure? What does that say? It's so interesting. Pure, it might be like pure bread of the house. I think that might be what it's saying. Pure bread of the house. Because this is the word for pure. This looks like bread. And then this is of or for the house. Of or for the house. And then this is the word for house. So now when you go down here, this is going to be biographical text. Yeah, it could be maybe their own. It's not really how the grammar works, so I'm trying to think. Interesting. So this is going to be real text. Let me see if the Met has a translation. They should. What? This is bull crap. They actually don't have a translation? It's wild. It's wild to me. Yeah, they don't have a translation of this apparently, but yeah, so it ends and then it continues on. You could read it like this, or you know what? It says this is his name, Mati. This is coming from a weird time because it's the intermediate period, which is why he looks a little off. He looks a little, he's got this weird, the weird lips and the eyes and the, also the giant cone and the pudginess. But you can see here, these are also another way visually to show all the different offerings. So the oxen leg, the bread, this is probably bread in some weird ass way. The goose, the oryx, and then these are more bread as well. There's the incense, this is beer. This is probably like jewelry. This box probably has a couple of different fun things in it. Alright, let me see. I had a couple other ones that I pulled up. This one. So this is slightly closer to, a game board? I don't think so. Which one what were you talking about? This? I don't think, this is probably not a game board. This is probably more bread. Usually the things listed on an offering table are only going to be edible things. If anything, they would have non-edible things underneath the chair. Potentially. But yeah, no, a game board, although this, okay, this glyph is technically a game board. This is a Senate board with the Senate pieces, but this is just a glyph meaning men, or you're pronouncing it as MN, men. Yeah, it's very confusing. Yeah. There's a lot of different shapes of bread, so that's like the main thing. So this is an Old Kingdom one. This is gonna be a little bit different. And to be honest, I don't even see the normal portions of an offering formula, but that's probably because this is Old Kingdom, so I can't unfortunately really confirm. But here, everything with the little symbol like this again means 1,000. So these are all going to be offerings. This is probably closer to an offering menu, where things are just going to be drawn out like this, and I can probably compare and contrast some of the stuff I have here on the offering menu and tell you which things are which. But also this is Old Egyptian, so it's going to be a little bit tedious and different. This one right here, the lion and the 2 loaves, and this is Hatet Merhet, which is first-rate oil. It's going to be really, really good, high-quality oil. I'm trying to see if I can recognize any of these. A lot of these are not, I'm not noticing them. Well, but here you go. Here are the big 4. It's gonna be really hard. It's gonna be like a cracker. It's not gonna be soft and nice. They probably added, if you were rich enough, they probably added fancy fruits in it. Or not fancy fruits, but like fruits or other things in it. But yeah, here are your big 4. Bread, beer, alabaster, cloth. The big 4 that you're going to see pretty much every single time. This is another one that's like an offering menu. This is again an Old Kingdom one. The Old Kingdom ones are easier. Oh yeah, and here's another one. I was finding a lot of Old Kingdom ones, and this one you can literally see, like, this is the offering menu. This is showing you all the different options of all the different stuff that they're making and how much of it they're gonna make and give, which is very funny. And again, all the different offerings listed. And so this is still a little bit before you will actually see like the real offering formula that we kind of looked at. I wanted to find a better picture of an offering formula. Here's another one. So, Hetepdenisu, an offering that the king gave, and Osiris, Wesir. Ooh. What is that? Lord of That is supposed to be the city glyph, but this is like, what is this, first intermediate? Oh, second intermediate. This is really bad quality, so it's, I don't know what city that's supposed to be, but it's a city. And then you got Great God. Again, some other city, but I cannot tell which city that is. These are more epithets. And see, this is the problem, is that there's so many different epithets. Bye, Nat! We're almost finishing up, so you won't miss much. It's like there's just more and more epithets, and I just wish I had a full list of the stuff, because it's just not... You would think that they would have a whole list of it, but there's not. So then there you get voice offering, and again, like 1,000 of bread and beer, 1,000, and then you go all the way over to the other side. 1,000 of everything good and pure for the Ka. Yeah, everything is just turns out the exact same. Oh yeah, this is, oh, I tried to go into this one, and it's not, that one I can't get a close-up picture of, unfortunately. We can also go into this one. Why is it doing this? Why is it giving me the redirect notice? So this one is the one that we were showing on the PowerPoint. You got Hatshepti, Nisu, Weser. You got the Hentiu, Imintiu, the foremost of the Westerners, the Great God, the Aha, Necher Aa. Then you got the Lord of... Is that Lord of Abiju? Ooh, we're getting really close. Yeah, looks like the Lord of Abiju. And then interestingly, look at this. This also says you can do multiple gods. It's not that common because you need the space, but you can do multiple gods. This is the name for Wepwawet. So it's Osiris and Wepwawet, and then it says again, Neb Ta Jesser, Lord of the Necropolis, which is one of the epithets of Wepwawet, and then you got D for giving, for then, and then it's actually instead of F, because F would be him giving. This is Sen for that they are giving. And then you get the voice offering, the Parateru, you get the bread and the beer, you get the ox, the fowl, you get the mehet, you get the cloth, you get the alabaster. And then let's see if there's anything else. Looks like... yeah, man. I mean, they've got the space, you might as well. This is... Which one is this? Oh, this is Senecher, which is incense. So they've included the incense. You can see here, this whole one is incense. Then they have Merhet. They have the oil, incense and oil. And then look, you still are going to get the, even though you've already listed a good amount of offerings, you're then going to get the Het, Nebet, Neferet, Wabet, Hetzabet. It's very close. It's almost everything good. Everything good. Oh, no, they're just spelling Neferet. Yeah, so everything good and pure. It's almost like everything good and pure. Maybe it's I think it's actually every good and pure offering. This is the word for offering. For the Ka of, and then you should be able to get Mehet, or Imi, is that the Imia? Maybe. So I think the name here is going to be Ahi. See, this is where it gets difficult. Ahi. Hecker? Okay. Oh. See, that's like, is this a really, really long name, or is it saying something else? Because when you look at this sign at the very end, this is mess. This means born, to be born of. And so this is potentially his mother's name. Or father's name, but usually mother. Born of. Born of the Lord of the house? Interesting. But then remember when I was saying earlier that these are all of the children listed. So, Sa is the bird. If it's got a little bread loaf next to it, it's a T, Sat, which means the daughter. And then the F means his. So his daughter. Pech. Oh, wait a second. His daughter. I think this means his daughter's daughter? Wait a second. I think it might actually mean that. His daughter's... No, it probably can't mean that, because there's no name after that. His daughter's Petez. Petez would be her name. But then she's dead. Mahaheru. And then his son, Ihi Mahaheru, who's dead. His son, Sarehi, or Sareha, maybe? Mahaheru, who is dead. His daughter, oh, I forget that sign. I can't remember what that sign says, so I can't remember. And this is Hemet, his wife, Hemetef, his wife, lady of the house. You can see that, lady of the house. Nebet's pair. Hepi Mahaheru, who is dead. So yeah. Alrighty. Does anybody have any last questions? Because I am fading fast. Fast. Oh, I'm fading fast, guys. I hope that was educational. I will scan all of this stuff in for you guys to see. There's also different examples that I didn't get to write, like that I have just here sitting. Yeah, exactly. A lot of these, so I'll show you briefly. So this is the packet that like my professor gave us of actual images, and I have the translations on different places. I have to find the notebook. That's the problem. I'm missing the notebook. But like here, like again, this one is just listing off family members because every family member wants to be included in these. Like this one is a little bit simpler, but like similar to the one we saw, but at the very bottom here, it keeps saying born of this person, born of this person. This one has a lot of family members as well, but it also tells a little bit about the person. And then it actually labels all the people down here who are around. So you can see like, certain people will, like most of these people are listed as alive, but they'll be labeled as like wife and stuff. And then this hunkin' one, I remember we had to translate this. this is a huge one, and all of these people are labeled with different words. And a lot of them, some of them are living and some of them are dead. And so the funny thing about this one is that the deceased is here, his wife is here, and his mother and his father are actually behind him. But are they dead? They should be dead. I actually don't know if they are dead. Their text doesn't say that they're dead. It's a whole very confusing